Today I want to talk about treasure and heart. Two things that God says are never apart. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be. And there's something in this God wants us to see. Treasure for God is an important theme. It's what the kings sought, it's what they dreamed in their dreams. Yet Solomon saw wisdom as more treasured than gold, and an even greater treasure, the prophets foretold. The kingdom of heaven, as Jesus revealed, he likened to treasure buried in a field. A treasure so great that if you or I were to find it, we'd chase after that and leave all else behind it. In fact, the man in the story, when the treasure was found, he buried it all back in the ground, and then he went home and sold all that he had just because he wanted that treasure so bad. Now, that might seem strange. If you've got the treasure, why not just take it? But I think the point is, we're not meant to fake it. He wanted to leave not one shred of doubt. That treasure was his. In short, he was sold out. Now, I must confess, between me and you, this isn't a story I see ringing true. Because so many people start chasing that prize, but then something else catches their eyes. And instead of a treasure of infinite worth, they start storing up treasures here on the earth, placing their faith in things they can't trust, that are stolen by thieves or corroded by rust. Now, I'm being honest, I've done this as well so many times that I'm ashamed to tell, chasing after some earthly thing instead of trusting the one true King. And you might be saying, I get this. I do. But the problem is you are still thinking of you. I'm going to say something that will sound a bit odd. These verses aren't about you. These verses are about God. So let's rewind and go back to the start where I talked about treasure and I talked about heart. But let's talk about God and let's talk of his plan. It's not about man treasuring God. It's about God treasuring man. You see, Jesus was not just about talking the talk. He was all about walking the walk. So when he says that these two things are connected, it's something in him that we see reflected. The treasure of God is not hard to find. Jesus is God's heart and his treasure combined. The very heart of God beat in his chest. In terms of ways to say I love you, I think that's the best. God didn't just send some sweet Valentine. He sent his son. He said, I love you. He said, you're treasured and you're mine. Jesus, God's gift is more than we know. The gift of God's heart, God's treasure to show. Now, you might not feel it, but God says it's true. Treasure for God is one word. It's you. No matter your feelings, your guilt, or your shame, you are the reason that Jesus came. Now, this might not be the gospel that you're used to, but maybe that's because there's this thing that the gospel's been reduced to. Yes, Jesus died on the cross for sinners to set them free, but has that made us blind to all else God wants us to see? The cross is not just about death, but rejection. And as Christ scorns its shame, we see God's perfection. For the cross is not a whimper, but a triumphant shout. You are my treasure. For you I'm sold out. And if that was the end of the story we knew, it would be amazing, wonderful, and true. But the gospel is more than death on a cross. It's about finding a treasure, not about loss. The empty cross stands eternal, a love declaration. The empty grave beckons a new invitation. Crucifixion reveals to us God's heart beyond measure. Resurrection invites us to make him our treasure. And if treasure and heart for God are undivided, then how can we sit here and be undecided? It wasn't a choice that Jesus was giving, it was simply a statement on how we are living, which brings us all the way back to the start. Look at your treasure and look at your heart. They're one and the same. And this is my prayer, that when you look to God, you find them both